Greetings and welcome to the 2020 AAMA annual meeting. I'm Holly Hampton, Director of Innovation at Baytech Entertainment, and really happy to be here. Wish we were in Chicago together in person, but happy to be here, and I'm really happy to introduce a dear friend and colleague of mine, Dannie. We've been able to work together the last few years in the licensing and entertainment world, and someone I've just grown to admire both personally and professionally. Dannie is a female leader in her industry, and without further ado, I'd love to introduce Dannie Festa, co-founder of World Builder Entertainment. Welcome, Dannie.
Thank you, Holly. Hi, everyone.
So before we jump in, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and who you are?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and give you the short version of that because I kind of have an interesting background. I graduated from UC Berkeley in film and television and also English, double major. And shortly thereafter, I got the start in the business through production. So even though I'm currently in management and production, I had the opportunity to work on telenovelas and worked in all aspects of production, like set design and wardrobe and editing. So it was a really good opportunity to see how the sausage was made from a production standpoint. And then I moved to LA, where I just started working for several production companies and on the development side. And through that, I worked, in a lot of comedy, thrillers, high-end indies, films like Sideways, 13, Scary Movie. And then I founded my company. I came to realize through that experience that what I really like to do was to work with writers and directors. And so I founded my company sort of at a young age, thinking that, I wanted to do things that were a little outside of the box and had more world invention. And so that was sort of an opportunity to do that. And I just kind of haven't looked back since. So we have a management production company, so we manage a lot of creatives, mostly writer-directors. We also represent brands and companies, and also produce. So I produce I'm the executive producer of the Trolls and Trolls World Tour franchise for DreamWorks Animation.
It's cool. That'd be a fun project. I know we licensed that game for Baytech, and it's just a beautiful product because it's so bright and vibrant and colorful. So that had to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really a joy of a franchise to work on, and I've been on the franchise since the beginning because I worked with the toy company and essentially managed the brand. And so it's just, we have as sort of creative people on the film, we have such a great team, and it's a really fun property to work on.
Yeah. Awesome. So when we started planning the annual meeting, which is virtual, and we landed on the theme, "The Show Must Go On," I instantly thought of you, not only as a female industry leader in the entertainment industry and being kind of a cousin to the amusement game industry. But the last time we saw each other was New York City at the end of February, and we were at Toy Fair, and we had just went and seen Moulin Rouge on Broadway, which was fantastic. And I couldn't help but think like how much our worlds have changed just a few weeks later, right? So that, of course, we were going to talk about COVID, and this conversation isn't about COVID, but certainly it is about disruption and change and hard times and how we as entertainment industries kind of get through that. So before we kind of jump in and start talking about some of the questions, how have you and your family been surviving quarantine and shutdown during this time, especially living in such a highly impacted area like LA?
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time. I mean, I think, we're doing the best that we can, just like everybody else, I think. We have small kids, so, not being able to sort of have the level of activity that we're used to has certainly been a challenge. And, I'm very lucky because my office is like the most COVID-friendly office space on the planet. Like it literally has its own entrance. It's all outdoor parking. So as far as my work life, it hasn't been disrupted too much in terms of having a place to go to work. But, you know, I mean, we're just taking it day by day, essentially. You know, at least in California, we are highly impacted, but we are able to be outside more often than not due to the weather. So I guess we have that going for us.
Yeah, we're definitely getting worried about winter coming here in Wisconsin for sure. So it'll make a shutdown even more difficult. When I thought about you being, you know, in the entertainment industry, and I look at us in the entertainment industry, there's similarities and there's probably differences. Yours being kind of movies, ours being game, but still entertaining consumers. So how do you see our industries similar, or conversely, how do you see them different?
I mean, we're all in the business of creating content, right? So whether we're making movies and television or we're making games, you know, we're all sort of in the same sort of creative industry. And, you know, I mean, we struggle too with regards to how, you know, how our movie theaters have been impacted in terms of the live experience portion of it. You know, the theater world, when, you know, you mentioned Moulin Rouge, like, you know, the theater world isn't able to do shows in the way they're used to. And so, you know, we're all sort of in the same boat in terms of trying to figure out how to continue entertaining people and doing it in a safe way.
Yeah. And we're in the business of making content. I know we talked the other day of like, you know, musicians are in the same place. Like they entertain people. Are like concerts just going to go away? They're not. Like artists they're pivoting and they're spending more time writing and building content because they can't go out and physically entertain. But
yeah, I mean, that's really the bulk of what we're doing in our business is, you know, we represent a lot of writers and directors. And, you know, before COVID hit, you know, we had all of our directors booked to go shoot on series, right? And so those series aren't able to move forward. So what are the directors going to do? So I think it's actually a really great time to be deeply creative. You know, we've been spending a lot of time developing right now. And as production starts to pick up, we'll see sort of how that process moves forward. But I think people are finding creative ways to continue to work.
Yeah. So you just touched on one of my questions was, so are you guys even able to produce? I mean, is just production cut off, or are people getting creative and doing it in different ways?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the question, you know, I'm sure in your industry too, there's like the magical question of like, when will people be able to go back and, you know, experience the games in person, and how do you handle large groups of people in one place? And the production question is something that really, you know, it's the biggest thing that we're dealing with regards to the unions. How do you go back and do everything safely? How do you quarantine the productions? You know, what's great is that in the last couple of weeks, people are starting to try to start shooting. A lot of that is not local. So a lot of those productions are in Canada or in Europe. I mean, basically, we're just trying to figure out places and ways that are safe to move forward with production. So it's definitely not what we're used to in terms of volume, but people are really trying to figure it out. And so, you know, fingers crossed that the productions that have started over the last couple of weeks are able to continue. And if that is successful, then we will see more production in the pipeline.
Great. So we know our industries have been impacted, but can you share a little bit, just maybe how has your business been impacted, and what are you and your partner doing to help get to the other side? Because I think you and I both agree and want to think positively, like we will get through this. But so what are you doing during that bridge time?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I think back to, you know, I've been in the film industry for over 20 years now, and I've seen that our industry change so much over the years that I mean, the difference here, of course, is that this is happening on a global level, and it's just something we've never seen before. But essentially, our business is always changing. There's always been disruptors along the way. You know, I think back to when I started, people who were doing features, doing movies, just did movies. The people who did television just did television. And over time, like, the formats changed, right? People got more into television. People wanted to do more IP driven things. I mean, you constantly have to be pivoting, I think, in a creative industry. So, you know, with COVID, what we've just been trying to do is really spend more time in development and trying to keep the pipeline going in terms of having content that we can have ready to shoot once, you know, this has sort of been more normalized. I did something crazy too. I started a new company in the middle of the pandemic, right? I made it
more stress.
Yeah, I mean, I made a big change, you know, and I think that that's one of the benefits of, you know, in terms of silver linings, right, is that we have a little bit more time to really think about what's important, what we want to be doing. You know, for me, it's been and I feel like a lot of creatives in the business have felt similarly, that this is a deeply creative time to really dig deep and, you know, maybe focus on projects and things that you normally don't have time for. You know, let's face it, we're running around all day, and now we actually have a little downtime. So I've been trying to embrace that as much as possible, and have been encouraging people that we work with to do the same. And I find that overall, you know, listen, we're all challenged at the moment, but, you know, I think people are finding ways to be upbeat and to see the benefits of, you know, having this extra time.
So would you recommend, so we have a lot of manufacturers in our industry, game manufacturers. So would you recommend, so what you're kind of doing is spending time on content and developing so that you're ready when it opens up. Would you recommend that to the game manufacturers, is keep creating games and ideas and content so that we're ready? I mean, would you recommend that as well?
I mean, listen, the way I see it is that, you know, as long as there are families and kids out there, I mean, what we do in the family entertainment business is, you know, people are going to want that content. So I really think that, you know, people have asked me, and I know, Holly, you and I have talked about this as well, is just, you know, will things go back to normal, you know, normal after all of this is over? And I really think that people are going to want to interact again. People are going to want to share space and time and experiences together. And I think that's what, you know, your industry does in a very physical way. And so I just think that people are going to get sick of being in their houses. You know, it's a long time to be in your house. So, you know, if there are games and things that can be made to prepare for a time when I think, you know, people are going to be ready to just be out there again. I mean, I think, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're going to assume that people are going to want to get back out there again. And things have happened, again, not to this level before, but I think that one thing that will always be in demand is that sort of space for kids and family.
Yeah. And that having that experience, right? There's like, it's about the experience. Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I think of my own two kids, you know, and they have so much energy and they thrive so much from just interacting with other kids. I mean, that's really what preschool is about, it's about this socialization and being with your friends. And, you know, you can sit there at home and play a video game by yourself, or you can watch a movie by yourself, but it's just not the same as going out into a place and being there with your friends and having a good time. You know, I think kids need that.
I agree. So you mentioned other disruptors, right? So this one's enormous because it's on a global level, and we've all felt them. We've all been disrupted. Any industry has, and we hope to be the disruptors, right? As leaders in the industry. But share with us maybe some other disruptors in your career that you've dealt with, and how did you overcome those, and disruption and this is more tragic, can have silver linings, or it can have great opportunities. So what were some of them, and how did you deal with it?
I mean, there's so many disruptors in life, right? You know, and they come in so many different, you know, packages. You know, I think a big one for me was in 2008, you know, our industry had a big writer strike. And, you know, I was 100% writer heavy. That was my business. And when that happened, I quickly realized that if I didn't get into other sectors and I didn't diversify my business, like, while I would be okay in that moment, down the line, that could be a problem. And so it was actually one of the better things that's ever happened to me, to be honest, because it forced me to start looking into other industries. I started getting into toys, gaming, you know, comic books, and it got me doing that sooner than a lot of my colleagues were doing that. So it opened up all of these opportunities I never knew existed, and it was something that changed my life forever, you know, in the best possible way, but that I probably wouldn't have done on my own, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then of course there's, you know, sort of the big elephant in the room with regards to streamers, you know, tech companies coming into our industry, you know, sort of what that looks like for us as creatives, how we sell content, how we make it. It affects our process. So, you know, and how the broadcasters adjusted to that, how cable networks adjusted to that. So, you know, it just, again, that disrupted what we were doing, but at the same time, it opened up opportunities to tell some stories that would otherwise never be seen, right? And people are able to watch content in different ways. So, you know, we're always dealing with an ever-changing landscape for that. And, you know, it's kind of like a moving bullseye, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of trying to figure that out. But I do think that, you know, all of these things have disrupted, but also brought with them some positive things as well.
So I find it beautiful that you're like, the biggest disruption in your life from a career standpoint was you had an all team of writers that your business was based on, and then the writer strike, and yet it became the greatest opportunity of your career. And I'm assuming getting then into brands and toys is what connected you to Kong, who's behind you, and I know you represent King Kong, and I and probably Trolls is how the introduction. So it created all of these other amazing opportunities, which it's pretty amazing.
Because I was open to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think that's part of it too, is, you know, when you're just kind of doing one thing in one sector, when you open up your mind to the possibility of doing other things, it really, you know, perhaps at another time I would have just ignored that. It would have, you know, wouldn't have interested me. So, so I absolutely agree. It was really magical.
So movie theaters are an important part of both of our businesses, clearly, and they've been devastated with the COVID-19 and the shutdown. So talk to me about your thoughts on movie theaters and in general for both of our industries.
Yeah, I really miss the movie theaters, to be honest. I mean, that just ever since I was a kid has just been one of my favorite pastimes, you know, is to be able to go see a movie in a theater. So it is really devastating that that they're suffering through all of this and we're not able, you know, to experience that right now. I mean, I think, you know, the theaters are an incredibly important part of what we do, at least as creatives. Like, it's, you know, we create the content to be seen in theaters. Like, that for us is like the ultimate experience that we want.
Not on
Yeah, I mean, listen, like, to be able to take your children to go see your film in a movie theater is truly magical in so many ways. And I think that, like, you know, that kids and families really need a place to be able to go and congregate and experience, you know, things together that's not inside the house. It's like, just because you're able to see something at home on your TV screen, it's like, it's nice to be able to go out and have an experience and eat popcorn and have something just be, just visually stunning, which is what so many of the theaters provide. As somebody who likes building big worlds and, with Kong and with Trolls, I mean, the stuff that I personally do is just, it just thrives in the movie theater space. So, it seems like what's really promising is that in a lot of other places, and not so much in the US right now because we have our own challenges with COVID, but as other countries start to reopen, the theaters will be able to reopen too. And so hopefully that'll ease a little bit of the, the struggles right now. But I just think it's an integral part of the movie experience, is to have those theaters.
And with so many theaters across the country and across the globe, how important is it to indie producers? And
yeah, I was telling you about that. Like, the indie world, to be able to see independent cinema in movie theaters, here in Los Angeles, we have all these old, beautiful theaters where you get to go and have this, experience. And also, for new filmmakers, to be able to have the opportunity to have their films show in theaters. It's an important part of the creative circle. We think about Oscar season, that's a theater experience too, to go and see something beautifully cinematic. So yeah, I think it's very meaningful for us on the creative side.
Yeah. And so I kind of kiddingly joked, right, about it. There is a difference between seeing it here and on the big screen. But we also talked about, I mean, we know you were part of a streaming launch earlier this year because of COVID. But we also talked, you believe they can coexist. So talk to us about that, because I appreciate being open-minded, right?
I think that, content is being created to be experienced in a lot of different ways. So as I was saying before, I think that humans, just human nature, wants to be with other people and experience things, right? So when you go in for that movie theater experience, I mean, we test movies all the time. And one of my favorite things to do is to go to the audience screeners where we show the film and you hear people laugh at the jokes and what's working and what's not. And to have that sort of communal experience of watching something you just can't get from home. Yeah. But sometimes you don't, you want to just sit in your sweats and just watch a show. And you can do that too. So, I mean, I just think they're entirely different. As someone once said, people have kitchens, right? They still want to go out to eat, right? Just because I can make my sandwich doesn't mean that I want to eat it. So I think that, it's the same thing here, is that you want to go out on Saturday night and get dressed up and go see a movie, as it
Rouge on Broadway.
yeah, or go to a theater show, if you just, again, if you look at humans over the course of our history, we have always had games, entertainment, live productions, it's just, I think it's like, are people never going to go to concerts again and dance, or, go to bars and have a drink? And, of course not. Yeah. It's different. I can make a cocktail at home, or I can go out and have a nice meal and have a drink and have someone else make it for me, so I think it can all coexist, it's just, it'll just depend on the types of stories that go into those formats.
Yeah, for sure. So being part of the big rollout of Trolls earlier this year, what can you share with us, personally, of just having experienced that? And it was a big deal. So.
Yeah, I mean, we just happened to be the first, film that this, where this came into play, as being on the creative side, we're not really a part of the decision making that goes into all of that. But I do understand why we rolled out in this way. We were 4 weeks out. And, we have a lot of partnerships with the film. And to be honest, too, it's such a happy film. It's such a fun movie that it made sense that we would, like, I personally enjoyed being able to see people enjoy it during a time that was, COVID was new and it was scary, So again, the studios make those decisions and they have their reasons for that. As a creative, I would be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't really looking forward to seeing the film in the theater and being able to share that with my family.
Did you get to see Hamilton live on Broadway?
I did, yeah.
You did. Did you guys watch it on Disney Plus as well?
I didn't, actually.
The only way I could see it, but yeah, it's great.
It's on the long list of things I should really see. I did get to see it in person though, and that was really amazing. So, I feel really fortunate that I got to experience it live, which was really fantastic.
Yeah. So you were talking earlier about being able to watch a screening of one of your movies and to be able to see and hear people's reactions. And it's no different than what we do. And so we can get revenue reports on Monday from how our games performed at a game room. And it shows numbers. And it's great. It's a benchmark. It's a data point. But the best way that we as content creators in the game world, the best way we know if we've got a good game is we go out in the field and we watch. And we call it the butt wiggle effect, right? Like, and then are people repeat playing and, are they having fun? Are they going and gathering their friends? And that's when we know we have something special. And, we have a saying, cash box is king in our industry. And it's true, it's important, but what makes cash box king is the butt wiggles and people repeat playing for sure. So you mentioned, Pete Gustafson has a story that he talks about all the time of when our industry was dealing with a disruptor, which was home consoles, and our industry was very video heavy, and so there was a lot of fear around that as a disruptor coming in, and so they were having dinner and talking about the fear of what was going to happen and to our industry, and someone asked Malcolm Steinberg, a very well-known industry icon, of what he thought, and he's the one that said everyone's got kitchens but they still go out to eat, right? And everyone has TVs but they go see movie theaters. So I think you and I agree, like, people still need to go out and experience things. And so do you have any other things? I know we kind of touched on that, but did you have any thoughts to further share on that?
No, I think we sort of touched upon it quite a bit. Are people not going to travel anymore and stay in hotels and go on cruises? Again, all of those, I just think everything, I think people being sort of locked in for long periods of time, that there's going to be a demand for something different and for fun and lightheartedness when this is over. So, I'm actually excited to see what will come out of that, actually, what kinds of new experiences people will have come up with for us through it. Even for us, this has given us time to develop more interactive type of entertainment, focus on stories from diverse voices that we might not normally see in front of the screen. I think it's a real interesting time. Looking forward to seeing what innovators are going to come up with during this time.
Right. But like we talked about, when Disney reopens, it wasn't a ghost town, was it?
No, people were waiting in line around the block, It's like, I think theme parks are, that experience is so unique and so special. I just don't, there's no replacing that.
Yeah. And like you said, I love, we have to innovate during these times. We have to dig down and get creative. And I know you shared a story. You just went to West Hollywood to have, I think, a drink.
Yeah.
right? There's like, people are getting creative, and it's going to be fun to see what happens. So
Yeah, what I was telling you is, these days I actually just realized it the other day because I'm not really out at night anymore. It's like you kind of come home and that's that. But the other day I had to drop something off at a friend's house in West Hollywood. And as I was coming out, there's this, kind of like a busy street, which is the hopping street in town. And I don't know why I expected it to sort of be empty. And it was in relative to what it normally is, but there's a lot of restaurants, sort of, bar-like places that are located there, and dance places for people to go dancing. And I thought it was so clever. They had an outdoor patio that they had put plexiglass in between the tables, and they had a full loud DJ with lights. And I mean, it looked like this happening party, right? Yeah. And they had dancers, they had built shelves in the windows, and they had dancers dancing in the windows, but from inside safely, right, and spaced apart. And so everything about it felt like you were having this sort of bar dance experience, except there was no dancing and no bar. And I just thought that was so clever. What a great way to sort of figure out how to recreate that experience in a new way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So before we wrap up, would you have any tips for the Family Entertainment Center industry and its members?
I mean, tips not necessarily per se, but more just maybe words of encouragement, because I really think that, just working in the family entertainment space, which is a space that I love and a space that I, have been devoted to for so long. I just really believe that as long as there are kids and families in this world, that need for in-person entertainment is always going to be there. Clearly, this is such a unique situation because normally when you have a change of industry, it's like in one sector or, with one area of whatever it is that you're doing. And in this case, it's global, it's all at once, and it can be really overwhelming. It's going to come back, right? Because, when you look at kids, they, studies have shown that kids just, don't work well in isolation. Social media can cause depression. Kids are not used to interacting in that way, and they thrive so much on social interaction. And, kids need places to go and be kids. For me growing up, it was the mall, it was the movie theaters, it was, people's houses, and going to Disneyland. And so I just think that those experiences actually really shape memories. Yeah. Some of the best memories that you have are those moments where you're, engaging in that way. And so just know that your work is important and that it means a lot to people. And I know it's hard right now, but it will come back. So just, hang in there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that. Thank you. So we had a couple of questions from the audience that I will share. Jeff Blair from Sherway Gaming asked, what types of businesses do you think the amusement industry can successfully pivot to quickly to help start growing again?
That I am not so sure, like where, what sort of businesses you could pivot into, as much as just maybe finding innovative ways to do business as you know it. So, what some people are doing here in terms of that live experience is, theater actors are going to people's homes and performing, or they're, you can maybe rent a game and bring it to your house, or, the salons here in LA are all on the street. So if you drive by the street, you're going to see people cutting hair a mile long,
Right.
They'll just set up umbrellas and set up systems. So, maybe there's a way to turn your parking lots into outdoor experiences. Me having small kids, we're home all the time. I'd love to find a place where I could go and the kids could play some games and have a good time and do it in a,
safe manner.
safe, yeah, in a safe manner. So I think, that's like the easiest thing to do, right, is to take what you currently have and just try and figure out a way to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Um, some things will change over the course of this time. And, being able to see, to have the time to sort of figure that out.
Yeah.
We
And
have
I
that
think,
now.
yeah, and watching what other industries are doing, what other markets are doing, right? I mean, this has been a global pandemic, but every country, every state has been handling it differently. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the global aspect of this isn't going to, be forever, because countries are starting to reopen, then they, have some setbacks. But, the United States, we're just such a big country with so many different districts and different things going on. It might take us a little bit longer. But places like Canada, for us at least in our business, they've opened up for production. They have figured out a system where we can safely go and shoot. And so the fact that we've been able to do that in Canada has been incredibly helpful for us, right? So, maybe looking into what's going on in other countries, trying to capitalize on the, different international markets where the coronavirus isn't so predominant. There might be opportunities there too.
right. So what are they doing? Can you share with us, like, what are some of those other countries like Canada and Germany doing that it's different?
I mean, Canada has a really good policy where they are doing a quarantine. So anybody that comes into the country, they have a safe place for all of the teams to be together in quarantine. Germany is actually a leader in testing capacity. So they've been actually able to do tests on people every night. So you go and you get your test at night, and in the morning, if you are negative, you are clear and you can go to work. Obviously there's a cost to doing that, but for some of the bigger movies that have, the bigger talent on those movies, it's something those productions can afford. And so, and we're being creative too, like in terms of the content itself. When we're developing stories, we're trying to think of like, okay, maybe what can we do to have something be more contained? Extras, that takes up a lot of people. How do we maybe have less of that? But even Canada's figured out a way to quarantine extras. So they're quarantined, sometimes families, right, are quarantined together, and then those extras can be used on multiple productions that are going on at once. So, so that's like a really interesting way to do it. Another thing I'll say too, just in terms of some of the changes is, like the working hours have been shortened. So normally productions can have really long hours, sometimes night shoots, things like that. And, maybe one of the benefits of all of this too is that there'll be better hours for people too. Like we'll come out of this maybe having better systems than we had before. Everybody's systems aren't really updated on a normal basis, and sometimes we're left, we really should be thinking about new, ways to be more efficient and to have a better quality of life for people. So I think a lot of restructuring is going on, and a lot of thinking is going on and how to make those things more efficient. And I think we will all benefit from that when that's over.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially all the people that have asking their employers if they could work from home part-time, and they said, no, it'll never work. It'll never happen. Well,
But that's actually what I'm getting at,
right.
is it's interesting because that's one of the questions I get a lot actually, is like, do you think like we're going to go back to work? Are we going to start working in offices, or studios going to open back up again? And I personally think that yes, people want to work in work environments. And, as creative people, when we're able to interact with each other, there's so much more that we can get done, different than, doing things at home over a computer. But I think employers will come to realize that it's okay if somebody doesn't want to sit in traffic for a day and wants to work from home.
Right
Work
on.
can get done. So I think what we're going to see is like a hybrid comeback of maybe you go to work 3 days a week, maybe an employer won't have an issue with you working from home one day. And again, that might improve the quality of life for the workers too.
Yep.
Right. So, so I think, there'll be new systems in place that will ultimately improve things for everybody.
Great. Awesome. Dannie, thank you so much. Honestly, it was such a pleasure. I appreciate you taking so much time and just sharing your thoughts, and it was inspiring, and I just really appreciate it. So, but before we go, I have the most important question.
Okay.
What is your favorite amusement game to play?
I'm such an old school gamer. Like, I just love the classics, and I know that makes me boring, I guess. But like, I love Pac-Man and, just and pinball, and I know there's a lot of innovation happening with those two, but and skee ball. Who doesn't love skee ball? I always love getting little tickets and getting prizes. So yeah, I just I kind of like the old school arcade games.
Yeah, the throwback. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
I'm a vintage gal.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. Here again, we wish we were in person, but this will have to do until next year. And just continue to stay safe and take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Bye.
Bye.